There are only two actual farmers at this table, but the people gathered here represent some of the real wheels of agriculture. Every one of them plays an instrumental role in getting you fed, including Miss Gypsy Gillum right here, who has been kind enough to host us today at her restaurant at the North Carolina State Farmers Market. Some of the best country cooking, and Gypsy sources everything she possibly can from North Carolina. It's all locally grown when it can be. That includes all the pork, all the chicken, and all of the things that are all of the different categories that all of the people around this table represent. You're going to meet them. You're going to find out what they do. When you understand and see under a microscope the support network that exists for farming in North Carolina, hopefully you'll understand there's the same kind of people working in your state. Come on, let me take you where the food comes from. I don't know about y'all, I've got a chicken about the size of Kansas.
I got pork chops.
Pork chops,
yes,
pork chops, chicken salad, North Carolina chicken. Everybody except me has been wise enough to get one of these big old biscuits. Larry, you represent a side of farming that people don't always think about all the time. You're a Christmas tree farmer. You grow pumpkins and gourds and ornamental things. You grow the pretty things for people to look at.
North Carolina is the second largest producer of Christmas trees in the United States, and actually we've represented the tree at the White House and the Blue Room more times than anyone in the United States. We've done that 14 times.
You did that once yourself.
I got to do that in 2018, and as a Christmas tree grower, it's like winning the Super Bowl. And then I've got a jewelry friend, and he's making me a ring, actually like the national championship, you know, for the White House. So that would be a good conversation piece when he gets that done.
Where in the state does that happen?
Well, I'm in the far western part of North Carolina in the Blue Ridge Mountains, so we're in the high elevation, and a lot of the nursery guys are right off the foothills.
So then a lot of what's being done on that ornamental level comes here to the State Farmers Market, and there are people who can pick it up here, or it gets shipped out here or transported here. How far do your Christmas trees go?
I would say probably the 48th state. We can box those trees up and mail them wherever.
Tommy Fleetwood from the North Carolina State Department of Agriculture. This restaurant, where we are today at Miss Gypsy's place, this is really, there's a lot of politicking that goes on this spot.
You know, politics plays a role in everything, including agriculture, and that's just the way it is.
If you're gonna
It
have
has to be done.
If you're gonna have a backroom meeting, this is a lovely place to do it. You kind of wear 40 or 50 different hats in service of the Department of Agriculture, but you've got some main frame areas that you hit.
Chip, I work closely with the potato industry in North Carolina. And
North Carolina potato.
And most of the commercial potato crop is grown on the coast in the eastern part of the state. And Larry, we go from 6,000 feet where you are down to some of these potatoes are grown in 5 feet above sea level.
Wow.
But it's on some of the most productive soil. We harvest beginning around mid-June, and everything goes fresh to the market. And one of the main reasons that potatoes are grown here is storage potatoes begin looking old. You know, they're dull, they're not pretty.
Now you say everything is sold fresh, and I think a lot of people watching might think, well, isn't everything sold fresh anyway? Crops like potatoes and onions and sweet potatoes actually go into a climate-controlled atmospheric storage, and they're sold later. A potato that you're eating today from Idaho could be 8 or 9 months old. It could have been coming out of the storage facility that long, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there are some manufacturers and some purposes where you have to have a fresh potato.
They're grown to supply potato chip facilities. So Frito-Lay sources potatoes from North Carolina, from Florida all the way up into Nova Scotia. Some years, North Carolina potatoes supply those Frito-Lay plants. Wise facilities, Utz facilities, and a lot of other small potato chip companies too.
Farmers saw the opportunity. They saw a gap. There was a gap in the supply of fresh potatoes. Somebody knew we can fill that gap. That's the kind of work that people don't understand Department of Agriculture does, that all of the industry does. Look for new markets, look for opportunities, look for windows that can be hit with the product that supports agriculture in their state. This is some mighty fine chicken down here, and I think that's probably your department. You're here today representing North Carolina Poultry and Eggs. So I think the first thing we have to ask you, I'm sure all of us at the table would agree, which did come first, the chicken or the egg? I've been dying to know.
That is a question I'm not going to be able to answer. That's a personal preference.
So there's no bureaucracy set up to determine that, right?
That's right.
Tell us about your job. Who are you working with? Who are you representing?
Mainly, I have an extension role, which means that for me purposely, it's the layer industry, but due to my background, all poultry, I work with them to try to solve problems that come up when they're trying to produce chicken for meat, eggs that we had on the table earlier, or turkeys.
When you say the layer industry, that's kind of shop talk for meaning the chickens who produce eggs and the chickens who are farmed to provide eggs. Those are your layers.
Yeah.
Where does North Carolina slot in chicken and egg production?
So broilers, we are in the top 3 in the United States. Turkeys are usually ranked about they go back and forth, 1 or 2. And then our layer industry is about 8 or 9th in the United States. So,
Well, you produce a lot of protein, but you produce something that is just important, and that is something for people to buy that protein with by creating jobs.
yeah.
Jobs. Poultry and egg is a very significant, sizable employer in North Carolina.
We employ directly and indirectly about 150,000 individuals or North Carolinians.
Michelle Granger with the North Carolina Sweet Potato Commission. You're kind of in charge. You're almost like the United States Queen of sweet potatoes.
As you know, it's the largest state of production of sweet potatoes in the nation, and we lead the nation by a little over 65% of all sweet potatoes produced. So it's a significant industry size.
I think it's a little more than just lead the nation. Out of all the sweet potatoes that are grown in the United States, but one state grows 2 out of every 3 sweet potatoes that's grown in this country.
It's a perfect example of how you've gathered us all here today. In North Carolina, we do an excellent job of working together, and I think the sweet potato industry is absolutely no different. Our farmers work very closely with our research universities. Our research universities work very closely with the Department of Ag. We have this amazing ecosystem where we are constantly sharing information with one another, and we're blessed. North Carolina is very blessed with some tremendous natural resources, and this infrastructure of technology, knowledge, ingenuity, and know-how plus natural resources has all come together.
I've got one question for Michelle. Is sweet potato one word or 2 words?
Well, Larry, thank you so much for asking that. Sweet potato is absolutely one word. And the reason for that is that it is not related to a white potato at all. And when you have it as 2 words, you are now using an adjective to describe a white potato.
Oh, so that would be like a potato that is sweet as a completely separate product.
That is correct,
That's
because
perfect.
botanically, it is an absolutely separate entity in plant and vegetable that's grown. And the Sweet Potato Commission of North Carolina, utilizing our leadership position, is doing our best to educate all that this is one word, and there's a real reason and need to use it as one word spelling.
Tobacco in particular and sweet potato, the modern sweet potato industry in North Carolina, I would go so far as to say, could not exist without the ancestry of tobacco.
It would not. There is absolutely no way, and I will always connect the two. They pair very well together from an operational standpoint. They both like the same soil, they both like the same climate, they both are grown relatively within the same time period. But the equipment that's used to farm both is very similar, and slight modifications can be switched out. The labor that is needed for both, which is tremendous, marries very well together, and the seasons are staggered just enough where if you are an operation that utilizes labor to farm, you can keep your workers busy throughout the entire season.
Some of the original King's land grants, and we're not talking about the King of New Jersey, we're talking about the old-timey king, the beginnings of North Carolina in the colonial days. So much of this land and so many farms and companies in this state still have their land and got their start from the original King's land grants. They were a King's grant, and a lot of those farms were commissioned to produce tobacco
Right.
to ship back across the ocean.
And the money and time that we put into equipment back in those days, and as you alluded to earlier, the decline tobaccos left us an opportunity. We still have equipment, we still have land, we still have technology that you can go out there and say, well, let's use this equipment for something else. What else can we do to replace that money? And there's been a great big increase in fruits and vegetables grown across the state. As a matter of fact, we got a strawberry grower here right there at the table. You know, you've got a nurseryman over there. You've got other people that have come into healthier lifestyle because eating more fruits and vegetables, we're growing more healthier food.
Because
from
tobacco success paved those roads.
Exactly.
And that's money that's been in this state since the 1600s. There's no money like old money. And you know, I mean, seriously, can we look at North Carolina and say thank you, tobacco, for building our present and future? L&M is a private company, one of the largest fruit and vegetable growers in the world. Product available in 48 states. You farm in 8 or 9 and a couple of countries. How did it all start here?
Well, we're deeply rooted. This is our roots. We farm in 9 states, but North Carolina is home. That's our corporate headquarters. There's 700 international companies in the Research Triangle Park. Not many people know that. And we're 700 international companies. The metropolitan area of Raleigh, Durham, 1.3 or whatever the population, 1.2 million people in the Research Triangle Park. It's changed. Now, you talked about tobacco. When I grew up, this was the state capital with agriculture scattered all around here. And some decades later, it's not like that. It's a sophisticated metropolitan research center.
The lives, I would say, of the average person are elevated. There's probably more opportunity. There's more economic opportunity.
It started with tobacco, and it started with those land grants. My ancestors received land grants from the King of England in 1745.
Wow.
And
I was awake then.
I don't know what happened to all that land, but anyway, I've got copies of the gift from the Lord, the Lord Proprietor or whatever.
But you've just got the copy,
I've
not
just got
the land.
the copy. I don't know what happened to the land.
You know what, Bobby? People say all the time, if I had a time machine, I'd go back and if I had a time machine, I would go back and find my great grandfather and go, whatever you do, don't sell the land. Hang on to it. Yeah, and tell my grandma and tell my mama, don't sell the land. Greg.
Yes.
Now I'm gonna look down at the end of the table to you. You know, we were talking about those self-made men who had to go scratch it out of the dirt. You are part of Mr. Joe McGee's family. Mr. Joe McGee was the founder of the L&M companies back in the very early 60s. How have you seen it go and grow?
Yeah, I would say just to go back a little farther, it was Mr. McGee's father who actually literally started selling produce.
Was Charlie
That
McGee.
was Charlie McGee.
So he didn't found L&M, but he was the farmer who started it all.
Correct, right. And he started selling produce out of the back of a truck.
Yeah.
And he built his way up into having a wholesale place on the farmer's market. And then when Joe graduated from college, he opened up right next to his dad and started buying and selling produce to people on the market. And then that's how L&M evolved to where we are today.
Your family has been a very influential and seminal force in North Carolina agriculture. And even though it's a private company, it's always been a private company and it's a family company. But you work with people like Mr. Tommy Fleetwood and Kevin, our friend Sim over here, who we haven't talked to yet, but we're going to get to him, the manager of this farmer's market. They help you do what you do.
L&M is the sales and marketing arm of the produce industry, and we have our own farms, and then we also represent probably a couple hundred farmers across the United States, just like our friend Rob Glover down at the other end of the table. So what it allows us to do is we grow produce in Florida and Georgia, and then when it moves up to North Carolina, we can use our sales contacts and our contracted customers, retail, food service, some wholesalers, and then we sell sweet potatoes and broccoli to those customers, which is a market that he may not have availability because he's in such a short window.
Sure.
So when we're dealing with customers for 12 months out of the year, we like to, work with different growers to make that supply happen.
And you've got partners like Rob wherever you need them and wherever you need to source them.
Yep.
Bobby, you talk about generations, and you're talking about generations of families being involved in North Carolina agriculture and in L&M. We've got one of those generations right here. Rob, what's it like to be a farmer in North Carolina? Tell us a little bit about your family history.
I'm a third generation farmer from Bailey, about 30 miles east of here. We're still in the tobacco world, still
Right.
raising tobacco, sweet potatoes, diversified into the vegetables some years ago, but I've seen a lot of change just in my short time on the farm, from just the technology, from, tractor can drive itself now, and
Right.
it can tell you what it done better than you can remember what you done, as far as documentation and things like that. Being able to sell produce nowadays is not, you just don't pick up the phone and call your customer and say, hey,
You need some strawberries?
need some strawberries. It's a little more
Little
to
more
it.
sophisticated than
and it
that.
takes people behind the scenes and behind the computer to get the produce sold and get it to the consumer.
So Chad, you're kind of in that same groove there. Tell us what you do.
Chip, I'm the president of the North Carolina Vegetable Growers Association. We started in 1977 with the educational purposes for the farmers in North Carolina, working close with the university and people like Kevin over at the NCDA. Our role has changed some from education, from how to grow the crops, to legal matters that agriculture is always under scrutiny with, and we've made it our priority to educate the farmers with what they could do and how to process some of the problems they have. We even make phone calls to L&M and telling them, we've got product and we got growers that they need to be dealing with. And there's a lot of moving pieces in our organization. We've got a great board, and I've got two great women behind the scenes that help me do a lot. But it's a lot going on in North Carolina agriculture.
We are here on the North Carolina State Farmers Market in Raleigh. It's a showcase location, attracts millions of visitors, and that's not a misspeak. Millions of visitors each year. A lot of them coming here, Miss Gypsy. It's kind of representative. Everybody at this table is somebody you probably already know through your position as the manager of this farmer's market.
Yeah, that's the great thing about this market. We're centrally located in North Carolina, so you get, we got farmers, we represent farmers from the far east to the mountains of North Carolina. I like to think the State Farmers Market, I kind of consider it like the front porch of North Carolina agriculture. Raleigh's urban, the Triangle area has just boomed. But they get to come here and they get to experience North Carolina agriculture, and we get to educate them on what we do. It's a great environment for people to visit. I know a customer told me one time, he said, come to the State Farmers Market, and it just makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And I couldn't put it any better.
This is why we're all here today. This is why we're all here at this table, even though there's only a couple of us who actually get out in the dirt and do the work. Every last one of you, me accepted, is a critical cog in the wheels that keep turning and keep us all fed. Towards that end, I'd like to propose a toast to North Carolina agriculture. Long may it ride.
Cheers. Cheers.
Now, in your home state, there are people just like this. You probably don't know their names either. These same jobs exist, maybe not every single one of them, but there are people just like this where you work and live. Their job is to help support the farmers who are feeding all the rest of us. So here's a toast to all of them and to all of you who keep all of us fed out here where the food comes from.